There's something no one tells you when you get married. No one sits beside you and says, look, there are certain behaviors you're going to carry from your past, from your culture, from the way you were raised, and you're going to repeat them inside your marriage thinking they're normal. And over time, those behaviors will erode what you have that's most valuable. No one says that. And then at some point in life, 2 years married, 5, 10, a man realizes something has changed, that his wife feels more distant, that the arguments have increased, that the connection that existed in the beginning seems to have slowly faded without anyone noticing exactly when it happened. And then comes the most honest question a man can ask himself: did I contribute to this? This video is for those who have the courage to answer that question honestly. It's not a list of blame. It's not a judgment. It's an analysis of patterns that appear very frequently. Patterns that most married men recognize when they look at them directly, and that go unnoticed precisely because they seem normal. The first mistake is thinking that physical presence is the same as emotional presence. You come home, you're there, sitting on the couch, eating dinner together, sleeping in the same bed, but your attention is on your phone, on unfinished work, on the game, on the exhaustion of the day. You're physically present but not truly there, and that creates a silent problem. Because a woman doesn't need a man who merely shares the same space with her. She needs someone who, from time to time, pauses, looks into her eyes, and is genuinely there. Someone who asks how her day was and waits for the answer, who sits beside her without a screen in his hand. The mistake isn't having moments of rest, silence, or distance. That's healthy. The mistake is when emotional absence becomes the pattern. When the woman begins to realize that to get her husband's attention, she has to compete with everything that isn't her. Meanwhile, the man believes he's fulfilling his role. After all, he's at home. He didn't go out. He didn't do anything wrong. But presence isn't the absence of leaving. Presence is the quality of contact. And that requires intentionality. It requires choosing in certain moments of the day to be truly available. The second mistake is normalizing functional communication and abandoning emotional communication. Over time, most marriages shift into operational mode. Conversations become logistical. Who's picking up the child? How much is left in the account? What's the plan for the weekend? What needs fixing in the house? That's real. That's necessary. The problem is when that's all that remains. When was the last time you asked your wife what she's feeling about her life? Not about tasks, not about the kids, not about the bills. About her, about what she's thinking, what she's longing for, what's weighing on her. A marriage cannot be just a well-managed company. A company that functions well can be efficient and empty at the same time. Many men think that if things are functioning, everything is fine. That if there's no fighting, there's peace. That if responsibilities are up to date, the marriage is up to date. But a woman may be living a loneliness inside the marriage that he doesn't even suspect, because she still wants to be seen beyond the role she occupies. She wants to be heard about what she feels, not only about what she needs to solve. And when a man doesn't develop the ability to go beyond functional conversation, he increasingly becomes perceived as an efficient roommate rather than an intimate partner. The third mistake is using work as a shield and calling it responsibility. This is one of the hardest to see, because work is legitimate, providing is real, the effort is genuine. But there's a difference between working a lot because circumstances demand it and using work as a safe place where you don't have to deal with the complexities of marriage. When things get tense at home, when there's a difficult subject to resolve, when the relationship is asking for attention, work can become a very convenient escape. And best of all, socially approved. No one will judge you for working too much. Everyone will call you dedicated, responsible, hardworking. But your wife will know. Over time, she'll notice that you always have energy for work and fatigue for her, that you always have time for meetings but not for an important conversation, that you solve complex problems out there and avoid simple ones at home. And this isn't about blame. It's a pattern that often comes from a genuine difficulty in dealing with conflict, emotion, vulnerability. Work is more predictable. You show up, execute, deliver, receive results. A relationship doesn't work that way. Recognizing this pattern isn't about punishing yourself for working. It's about honestly asking, when things get uncomfortable at home, what is my instinctive move? The fourth mistake is confusing not fighting with being okay. Some men learned very early that conflict is dangerous, that when things heat up, it's better to give in, stay silent, agree, deflect. They enter marriage with that pattern running and think they're easygoing, flexible, low-maintenance partners. But internally, something else is happening. The things that bothered them, the boundaries that were crossed, the needs that were never expressed, all of that accumulates. And the silence that seemed like peace turns into distance. One day the man reaches a point of resentment he can't even clearly explain. Or the opposite. The man who avoided conflict for so long that when it finally appears, it shows up big, disproportionate, at a moment that wasn't even the most important. Not speaking about what bothers you isn't maturity. It's a deferred cost. You didn't solve the problem, you just postponed it with interest. A healthy marriage isn't one without conflict. It's one with a culture of resolving conflict without destruction, where both people can say what needs to be said, hear what's hard to hear, and come out the other side of the conversation still connected. That requires a man to develop the ability to take a stand, to say what bothers him without exploding, to listen without becoming defensive, to disagree without abandoning the conversation. And the fifth mistake is stopping your own development and assuming the marriage will stay at the same level. When you stop growing, the marriage stops too. And when one continues growing and the other doesn't, distance appears. It's not about external achievements. It's not about title or money. It's about who you are becoming, how you handle emotion today compared to 5 years ago, how you react when you make a mistake, whether you can genuinely apologize, whether you're aware of your own patterns, whether you're still curious about life, about the world, about your own wife. The woman you married is not static. She keeps changing, maturing, wanting new things, questioning, growing. And if you've stopped, at some point you'll be looking at a different person, and she'll be looking at someone who stayed behind. Personal development within marriage isn't a luxury. It's what keeps two adults in genuine expansion, truly interested in one another. It's what makes it possible, after 10 years together, for there still to be something to discover, still to be respect, still to be attraction. Not because of novelty, but because of depth. These 5 patterns show up in all kinds of marriages. In good men who love their wives and have no intention of hurting anyone. And that's exactly why they're so important to see. Because they're not obvious vices. They're things that seem normal until the damage is already done. There's no formula here. There's no step-by-step that guarantees the marriage will improve. What exists is a question each man has to answer for himself. Who am I becoming inside the marriage I have? Because the relationship won't transform before you do. And even if you change, the other person has the right to decide what to do with that change. What's within your control is who you decide to be, and that alone is a lot. If this video made you think about something you'd never stop to face directly, leave it in the comments. It doesn't have to be something big. Sometimes a small pattern we finally name changes more than any advice ever could.